In this tutorial, you will learn how to create animation in Maya and how to render an image sequence in a single image. In this video clip, at the beginning, we see the force and position vectors from a different angle over time. After that, the torque vector fades in. Let's create the images for this movie using camera to film our 3D scene. Go to Create, Cameras, and select Camera. The new camera is now part of the scene. In the outliner window, we should give it a descriptive name. For example, Main Camera. Go to Window, Rendering Editors, and select Render Settings. Set the size to 640 by 480 pixels and the resolution to 72 dpi, which is good for video. We also have to define the rate of change over time. Go to Windows, Settings Preferences, Preferences. In Settings, set the frame rate to 30 frames per second. In Time Slider, set the playback speed also to 30 FPS. Let's also set the animation and playback start to 1 and end to 30. This means the animation will be 1 second long and will play at 30 frames per second. To look through the camera while also seeing the entire scene, we can split the viewport in two. Change one of the panes to show what the camera sees. Panels, Perspective, Main Camera changes the view to the main camera. The other panel shows the default perspective view, including the camera. Let's position the main camera so we see the 3 arrows as they appear in the second part of the animation. In the main camera panel, go to View, Camera Settings, and choose Resolution Gate. The camera panel shows how images will look through the main camera. Refine the position and rotation coordinates in the channel box. We define the changes over time for the animation in the timeline under the viewport. The timeline currently has 30 frames for our 1-second animation. We can change the duration by typing a new end frame, display and edit a specific frame, or show only part of the timeline. You can create motion animation by moving cameras, objects, or both. For the torque video, we group objects and animate using keyframes. The main camera now shows the 3 arrows in the first part of the torque video clip. In the channel box, select Rotate with Z. Right-click on the selection and choose Key Selected. Note the red line at frame 1 in the timeline, which indicates a key frame. To animate the motion, we need to change the rotation at frame 30. In the channel box, change Rotate with Z. Right-click on the selection and choose Key Selected. Note the red line at frame 30 in the timeline, which indicates a key frame. In the first part of the torque movie clip, only the red and blue arrows are visible. To hide the green arrow, select its group in the outliner window, then go to Display, Hide Selection. Use the controls next to the timeline to play the animation. When the perspective panel is active, we see the default perspective view, including the camera. When the main camera panel is active, we see what the camera sees. Rendering means creating the image sequences needed to edit a movie. Our animation is 30 frames, so rendering will generate 30 images. Go to Window, Rendering Editors, and select Render Settings. Make sure Render using Maya software is selected. Give your files a name. Set the image format to PNG. Choose a preference for how the frame number will be displayed. Set the frame padding to the number of digits of the last frame number, 2 in this case. Select Main Camera. Switch to the Maya Software tab and set Quality to Production Quality. Make sure the camera panel is selected. In the top left corner of the screen, open the drop-down menu and select Rendering. Choose Render, Batch Render, and wait for Maya to render the images. Once rendering is completed, look in the Images folder in your project. Here are the 30 images which Maya rendered for the animation. They are named and numbered according to the render settings we defined. In the second part of the Torque movie clip, the green arrow fades into view. To create this effect, we need one additional image from Maya, with the green arrow visible. To show the green arrow again, select the group in the outliner window, then go to Display, Show, Show Selected. Make sure the main camera panel is active and frame 30 is selected in the timeline. Go to Render, Render Current Frame to open the Render View window. Select File, Save Image. It is good to give this file a unique name since it is not part of the previous image sequence. Then save it. We have now rendered all images we need to edit the Torque animation. They are saved in the Images folder in the Maya project. Save the scene. We can proceed with editing the movie in After Effects.